Gun violence and crime are not, of course, just big city problems, but they play out differently in rural and urban areas in Northern Ontario. Here to fill us in on whether it's a factor in municipal elections in their part of the province, from our studio at Confederation College in Thunder Bay, Ontario, John Thompson, our Northwest Ontario Hub editor, and from our studio at Laurentian University in Sudbury, Claude Sharma, our Northeast Ontario Hub editor. Welcome.
Hi, Jan.
Now, when it comes to crime, Ontario's north usually gets a bad rap. John, let's start in Thunder Bay, which the city has once again earned the title Murder Capital of Canada. Tell me about some of the unique challenges that have brought the city to this point.
Well, it's not a moniker that Thunder Bay wears proudly, but it is true that Thunder Bay has had more murders per capita in 2010, 2012, 2014, 2016, and in 2017. There is crime falling in the city in general. That's true of everywhere. But the index that measures violent crime is on the increase. Thunder Bay also has the highest rate of reported hate crimes per capita, and the rate of drug overdoses is about double the provincial average. Most of that can be attributed to to fentanyl and carfentanil that's starting to show up in the illicit drug trade.
So, John, tell me, how do you think Thunder Bay compares to the GTA when it comes to how crime is covered?
Well, I'm not from Toronto, but from what I understand of the media coverage, crime seems to be an issue in this election in Toronto because it's impacting people that it doesn't normally impact. There are pockets of extreme poverty and violence in that city in the same way that there are in all big cities, but it seems to me that the media doesn't report on that because it's not news, it's normal. The concentrations of extreme poverty and violence are just externalized as part of the overall community. So the Thunder Bay Police put out this map every week with identifying areas of crime. And there are concentration points in urban cores and elsewhere, but by and large, it's all over the map. And people who are not normally affected by crime and violence are finding themselves affected. So I think in some ways it's the same sort of issue in Thunder Bay as it is in Toronto.
Now, Sudbury is another interesting case. It saw the country's highest jump on the Crime Severity Index. I want to show you guys some numbers here. According to the numbers put out by Statistics Canada this past July, 4 out of the 5 cities with the biggest increase in reported crime were in our province. So if we look at the numbers, number 1, the Greater Sudbury area, up 25%. Tied at 2 and 3, Guelph and Moncton. Moncton being the only non-Ontario city on the list, both up 15%. Kitchener, Cambridge, Waterloo up 14%, and St. Catharines rounding up the top, the Niagara area, a 12% jump. But then, according to Maclean's magazine's Most Dangerous Places in Canada ranking, Sudbury is considered one of the safest places in Northern Ontario. Claude, what's going on here? Can you give us some perspective on this?
Well, Jan, the Maclean's study, that's from 2016, and that was a year where there were no homicides reported in Sudbury, one of 3 bigger cities in Canada that had 0 homicides. And then the other numbers you put out from Stats Canada, those are from 2017. And the Greater Sudbury Police Service did release a 2017 crime index, and it showed that an 18.5% increase in crime, with a majority of those crimes, about 87% of those, came from property and car theft crimes. In regards to more of the violent crimes, you're looking at sexual assaults. Those have been up about 6.3%. Kind of a good, bad news situation on that front. Police say that while it's bad always to have those numbers up, it means more people are reporting it. They attribute it to the Me Too movement, and also in regards to the police's building relationship with victim services. So more women are more comfortable to come out in regards to that. Also, too, you got to look at the cases in regards to child pornography. Police are more active in monitoring these situations, and also, too, these are kind of crimes that build up over time, and maybe arrests are made more in 2017 than they were compared to in 2016.
Now, you guys have been busy looking at the municipal campaigns with the election less than 2 weeks away. John, you attended 2 candidates' debates in Thunder Bay yesterday. Claude, you've been following several in your region, including 2 last night. How much of that discussion has crime been taking up in those debates? I want to start with you, John.
Well, the real estate board in Thunder Bay held a mayoral debate yesterday, and the first question it asked of the candidates referred to some areas of the city as war zones. And that's hyperbole for certain. There isn't like mortars and rocket launchers happening in Thunder Bay. But I think it's important to point that out because it shows just how high the temperature has risen on the crime discussion. In that debate, nearly every candidate running for mayor of this city led with crime and homelessness, drug addiction, mental health. And those are deemed to be all sort of a snowball of the same issue. And in fact, every candidate I've spoken to, whether running in wards or running at large or running for mayor, are saying that at the door they are hearing one issue, they are hearing that snowball of issues as one issue across all demographics, across all neighborhoods, across all races and ages and property values.
Claude, we go east. Is it the same kind of conversation?
Nowhere near to the level of what John is seeing out in Thunder Bay, but also too, I don't want to downplay it as well. I reached out to all of the mayoral candidates in North Bay, Timmins, Sault Ste. Marie, and right here in Sudbury. I got some feedback as to what they're doing when it comes to their crime prevention strategies as they head into the municipal election. A lot of the debates, there was a question yesterday asked at the one in Sault Ste. Marie. Just one question focusing on crime. A lot of generic statements, how there needs to be more in regards to prevention and intervention when it comes to those dealing with drug issues, mental health issues. Some other candidates have told me that they really want to see police partner up more with the neighborhoods, to get into the neighborhoods, because we all know that police in pretty much all areas, they're taxed. They can't be solving each crime each day. So the biggest issue, though, I found, though, from city to city, is that they really wanted to focus on cleaning up the downtown, the discarded needles, the thefts that happen down there. Because there is a reality here in some parts of northeastern Ontario, is that some of these downtowns are pretty dangerous, and some people are scared to go to the downtown areas because of the crime that's happening there.
John, Thunder Bay leads the country in hate crime reporting, and there was a recent investigation into the alleged systemic racism in the Thunder Bay Police Service. You followed that extensively. Can you bring us up to speed on where we're at? What's the latest updates?
Well, there are two investigations still active into the Thunder Bay Police Service and another that's into its board. We can say with certainty tonight that those will not be released prior to the municipal elections. I don't begrudge the OIPRD, the civilian watchdog organization, for taking its time. I think that this is, when it is released, it's going to resonate across Canada with municipal services and police services in specific. But it is difficult that the new council is going to have this report dropped on it, and it's not going to have a mandate from the public as to how to respond to it. Who is largely deemed to be the front runner for mayor, former Thunder Bay Atikokan MPP Bill Morrow, has publicly called on the police board not to hire a replacement for the outgoing police chief. And the board has responded that it will operate as it is entitled to operate. But at this point, we're less than 10 days out from an election. It seems unlikely that that's going to happen.
I want to talk about some unique measures that police departments in Northeast are taking to tackle crime and connect with communities. You touched a little bit on it, Claude, but tell me a little bit more about what they're doing out there.
So the current mayor of Sudbury, Brian Bigger, what he wants to do is bring more police presence to the downtown. One of those ways is by having a storefront location in the downtown mall, the Rainbow Center here in Sudbury. He says if reelected, he will try to make that happen, and he's been partnering up with Rainbow Mall management. And the management has said over the past year, there's been 12 assaults at the mall, hundreds and hundreds of needles discarded, a bunch of thefts taking place. So they feel police presence in the mall would be very helpful. And they're actually doing that today too in Sault Ste. Marie. The police chief there wants to put a hub inside its downtown mall. They've been working on a project recently called Project Heat, which increases police presence in the downtown, and I've been told it's very successful with arrests made, with drugs seized. And also, too, one thing that is kind of a bit of a difference here in the Northeast is online reporting tools. So Sudbury has online reporting, so citizens can go online and they could report crimes that are maybe not emergency ones, like thefts under 5,000, theft of property, graffiti. So they found that from 2016 to 2017, they've had a 52% increase in crimes reported online. Sault Ste. Marie also has that as well. Timmins and North Bay do not have online reporting of crimes yet, but it's something they're looking into and may have in the new year. And also, too, just going back to neighborhood groups. There's one successful one here in Greater Sudbury, really close to the downtown. It's called the Louis Street Association, so kind of a social housing area. It's been going on since 2010, where kids after school aren't hitting the streets. They're getting involved in community activities, gardening. So they found that when it first started, compared to nowadays, the calls of service for police in that area have dropped dramatically.
John, I want to end with you. You've been on the campaign trail. You've heard some interesting crime reduction strategies proposed by some of the candidates. Tell me about them. Do you think they'll work?
Well, there's an interesting issue we haven't addressed yet, and I think it's one of the big reasons that all these snowballed issues are turning into the top issue, and that's that gangs from Toronto and Ottawa have been setting up in homes in Thunder Bay and dealing illicit drugs in residential areas, and that exposes people who are not normally exposed to crime to a very different landscape than they're accustomed to say the least. So as a result, the candidates in Thunder Bay, particularly for mayor, are all kind of running on both sides of this issue, both left and right, where you had the boogeyman of the last generation that was a homeless person addicted to opiates, around here mostly Indigenous, and that person is no longer sellable as the boogeyman of crime. That person is now deemed the victim of crime because the yardsticks have moved. And so they can say from the left that that person needs to be treated, while saying from the right that we have these very violent criminals that are pushing crime and drugs on our city, and they need to be dealt with in more of a persuasive manner.
Always an interesting conversation when we have you guys on board. Thanks again. That's John Thompson and Claude Sharma joining us from Thunder Bay and Sudbury.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is brought to you by the Chartered Professional Accountants of Ontario, helping businesses stay on the right side of change with strategic thinking, insightful decisions, and business leadership. Are you on the right side of change? Ask an Ontario CPA.